So one of the things that you had mentioned was navigating the grant loan systems in the different states, and you working through those hurdles of helping out the different communities. What have you learned along the way? What do they need to know about those things? Because it's pretty daunting. You bring up those words and they're just like, oh my, I don't even, I'm gonna have to pay someone a $25,000 to even look at this.
Yeah, so anybody watching this is going to know that the biggest hurdle that any system ever has to overcome for any type of maintenance, upkeep, expansion is going to be the funding cycle. Getting funding is it seems astronomical for most of these systems because if they don't have it, most of them understand, yes, there's grants out there. But if it's free money, it's got to be really hard to get. Otherwise, I can just go to the bank and get a loan. But maybe our system doesn't make enough revenue to sustain a loan payment. Right. So grants seem to be the go-to for most of these systems. It's most of these systems need and require and rely on grants, but they do not know how to get the grant. Again, it's free money. It's got to be extremely hard to do. The problem is it is extremely hard to do. There's a lot involved with getting a grant. I mean, you're talking 50, 60, 75 page submissions with a grant package. You're talking about these beautifully articulated stories about what this system is comprised of, what the system's history is, who the system provides to, exactly why you need this project, what is involved in this project, what are the costs associated with this project, how is this project going to sustain the system, how is it going to increase the financial responsibility of the system. And all of these things are included in grants. And so there's a lot involved with the grant. They're also like, I don't even know where to look for a grant. The great thing about it is there is so much money out there for these rural and disadvantaged systems that it's almost stupid. Okay. Like the government has allotted billions of dollars for rural and disadvantaged systems. The reason there's still billions of dollars left is because they don't know where to go to get them, the loans or the grants. And you have two types of grants. You can get a straight 100% grant, or you can get X amount of principal forgiveness, which is basically still a grant. And so in that situation, for most of the rural systems, I would always say, hey, you want to start off with your rural water associations, either the National Rural Water Association or your state rural water association, because they give out a lot of grants based on the grants that they receive. So it's a second tier grant. Rural Water Association will apply for hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. They'll get it, and then they get to sub out portions of that grant to these individual water systems. One piece of advice I would give for all these rural water systems is if you submit a grant application, majority of the time you're always going to get it. It may not be this cycle, may not be next cycle. It may be 3 cycles away before that grant ever gets awarded to you, but you will get approved for that grant and you will be put in a long line of individuals that are going to get awarded those grants prior to you. But it's all about getting that package submitted. And you're right. If you want a grant, you're going to call your engineer and say, hey, we need to apply for this grant. And your engineer is going to do what anybody else out there can do, which is find somebody that does grant work, hire that person if you can afford them. Okay. So you need to have, you need to have $10,000 to $25,000, depending on the size of the project, to pay this grant writer to submit the grant, because you cannot pay a grant writer a fee based off of a project sum. And what I mean is the grant writer can't get a percentage of the project for doing the grant. They can't, that's illegal. They have to either work on a set price or an hourly rate, which if anybody's ever written a grant before, they know that there's a lot of rebuttals. There's a lot of addendums that got put in. The grant, whoever you're submitting the grant to, the EPA, USDA, Rural Water Association, they're going to say, well, we need this amount of information. All right, I give it to them. Well, we need clarification on this. All right, I give it to them. Well, we still need clarification because it wasn't clarified enough. Right now, you're working off of how efficient is your grant writer and how many repetitions of submittals are they looking to get, because they know I could submit this but leave out maybe just this little bit of information, and get another 7 to 10, 15 hours on the resubmission of that one answer. All right. And if you get a grant association that you're submitting to, they don't always come back with your full grant review and say, this is all the information I need. Maybe they need clarification on this before they can move to section number 2. Right. So maybe your grant writers can't answer all the questions in one setting. They can only answer this amount. And once they get past this phase, then they can answer this amount. Maybe they got to go back to the engineer for this amount of information before they can even move on to the second phase. So finding a grant writer is like finding a good engineer. You're going to go through trial and error. And if you got 1 tank or 2 tanks and you've only done 1 grant every 20 years, chances are you're probably not working with the same grant writer. So one thing that we've done is we started a subsidiary company called New Water Funding. And what it does is it targets just water utilities. Okay, so we know exactly what they're looking for when we submit a grant. Our grant writers know exactly what they're coming up to. And what we do is we set either a flat rate or an hourly charge, but we do so with a back-end payout to where we assume all the risk. Because again, we know, and we should, as a company that deals with water utilities, we know what the grant is consistent of and what they're going to ask you for. And if they come back 18 times and say, I need clarification on this, that is not your fault. That is our fault, because we know what we were supposed to submit. And if we get that many repetitions of resubmittals, that's obviously something on our company and not the client, because we should have known what answers to ask you based on the grant application. It gives you all the information you need. So if I submit a grant and I say, I'm submitting this grant based on what the grant's requesting, and they come back that many times, I obviously left information out to benefit me somehow financially. So what our company does is we submit the grants and we get paid on the back end. And if you get denied for the grant, we understand we're assuming the loss on submitting that grant. We're not going to charge you and say, hey, well, you got denied, so you still have to pay us this note. It's all contingent on the grant getting approved. You need a grant, we may tell you, hey, if you get a grant, and we've used this before, if you get a grant, we would like an additional 5 to 10 points in the evaluation process when you receive the bid submittals for that project. Give us 5 to 10, and this is completely legitimate, give us 5 to 10 points in the experience section of that bid proposal for us doing the grant. So yes, we will do the grant for less, but we still get paid on the back end. But if we're going to get awarded that work, it's an point-based evaluation on our bid proposal, then we get 5 to 10 points extra that no other company is getting because of the expertise and experience that we're putting into grant to finished product. So those points only get reviewed and accepted if we're still in the running. If we're $30,000 above somebody else, that 5 to 10 points isn't probably going to put us in the running for the final selection process of that project. But if we're neck and neck with somebody else and we started the project start to absolute finish of the final product, then yeah, that 5 to 10 points in the experience category should go towards our company. And we should get the award for that project. And that's done us work in the past as well. We've gotten awards based on that. So grants, financial opportunities are always going to be the biggest hurdle that any system is going to come up against. And it shouldn't be the rural water's sole responsibility to find, understand, and submit a grant package. Again, it's not their lane. It's not what they want to do. And it all comes back to trust. They need somebody they can trust to do them right and to make sure that the price note matches the quality of work and the life expectancy of the project.